So Senator Stabenow is joining us today. She has been a champion for public schools and for children for all the years she's been a public servant. During the pandemic, she has fought to ensure our schools have the funding that is needed to provide a high quality education, whether they were at school or at home, and recently introduced the bipartisan Hallways to Healthcare Act to help schools provide comprehensive healthcare to our students. She currently chairs the Senate Agricultural Committee and is working on the Child Nutrition Program reauthorization. And we are excited to have her here, and I will turn it over to our Senator, Debbie Stabenow.
Well, thank you so much. And I think we've always been saying this, but I look forward to a chance when we're going to all have a chance to be back together again. But thanks, Jen, for your work and your whole team's work. And Jill Fennessy, thanks as president of the board. And thanks to all of you. I know the past 15 months have been hard. They've been really hard for all of us, and knock on wood, it feels like we're coming out of it. At least if we can get everybody vaccinated, we're going to really be on our way. So, we're making real strides right now, but it's been so hard. I mean, as we all know, almost overnight, we had to change the way we live, change the way we work, change the way we do school. I just want to say thank you to all of you, because not only for making sure you're focused on children's education, which has been so complicated, but also getting them nutrition help, food help, which, as you know, with my agriculture, nutrition, and forestry hat on, I've been very, very involved in trying to make sure that there was as much flexibility as possible for children. And for families. So I just have to say that I really think kids in Michigan have been very lucky to have all of you working on their behalf every day. And we've got more to do, right? But they've been very lucky to have you. So I just want to touch on a few things, and happy to obviously open it up for questions. But of course, throughout the pandemic, I've been working in a lot of different ways, from the CARES Act to the rescue plan, on getting funding for K-12 education, as well as higher education, as well as nutrition for children in schools. And I know you know the numbers, but our K-12 schools have gotten $3.7 billion in emergency funding through the American Rescue Plan, $2 billion in December, and what we did, and as well as the CARES Act. I have to tell you, I continue to be incredibly frustrated that those funds have not been released and given to all of you. There's just no excuse for that. I've led efforts from our Michigan delegation, letters to the leaders in the legislature. And, I don't know, unless there's something I didn't hear today, which I hope, if there was something, great. But I really have to say, there's no excuse for this, in my judgment, just no excuse for this. And it was so hard to get those funds, and particularly the negotiations we had to do at the end of the year, and then what we went through in the rescue plan. So I hope all of you are not, I hope you're being loud about this, because it's about our kids, and it's about our teachers, it's about our communities. And I have very little tolerance for what I'm seeing in terms of not releasing dollars that are needed. So we'll continue. We're moving forward on a number of other things, but I find it incredibly, incredibly frustrating. I'm sure you do too. An IDEA, I just want to mention, I've been a proud partner of yours over the years, trying to increase money for IDEA. We did include in the rescue plan an additional $3 billion for IDEA, and the president's budget that was just released proposes a 20% increase, which I think is really important, up to $15.5 billion. I sit on the budget committee, and am working hard to get that move forward in terms of the federal government has never met its commitment, period. So we've got to keep pushing. High-speed internet, we all know what has happened when we look at the homework gap and high-speed internet. And so many disparities were revealed during COVID, and one of those, in addition to racial disparities and health disparities, the fact that depending on where you live in Michigan, you either could successfully have your child at home doing virtual learning or not, or maybe not be able to get telehealth, or not be able to do what we're doing right now. So I've been, again, very focused on what we need to do, and working with Michigan leaders as well. The rescue plan provided $7 billion through the FCC to establish an emergency connectivity fund to help schools and libraries. And as I'm sure you're aware, the program was launched in May, and you can apply for technology and devices, and hopefully that's something that you're doing. We also, in the agriculture space, back when I wrote the Farm Bill, actually before the pandemic in 2018, we upped the authorized amount for high-speed internet, actually from $25 million to $350 million a year. And now I'm working hard in the next round of funding as we move forward to the American Jobs Plan, and hopefully that's going to pass an infrastructure bill. We want to do a major effort on high-speed internet, which is infrastructure. It's definitely a part of what we need to include in our infrastructure moving forward. I know that teacher shortages are a huge struggle right now, and I'm very supportive of Title IIA, the professional development grants, and as well as the public service loan forgiveness program, so that we can get teachers and other public servants into education, and I have loan forgiveness after 10 years in the field. And the president has proposed a jobs plan and what he calls a families plan. It's really sort of the hard infrastructure that we think of, like roads, bridges, water, sewer systems. Now we're including internet, and then family infrastructure, right? The things that allow families to be successful in terms of education and childcare and home care and so on. And so his family plan calls for $9 billion to address teacher shortages and improve training for teachers and increase diversity and so on. So I hope we're going to be able to do that. I also want to mention something. I know it's a very big deal for all of you, and I'm working very hard to get this in the tax provisions of the American Jobs Plan, if we can move this forward. The 2017 GOP tax law raised the cost of borrowing, as you know, for state and local governments by eliminating the advanced refunding of tax-exempt bonds. I know that makes it more expensive to finance projects. And so I've joined with a Republican colleague of mine, Roger Wicker from Mississippi, and we've introduced what we're calling the Local Infrastructure Act to reinstate the advanced refunding of municipal bonds. And I'm really hopeful we can get that down. We need you really loudly talking about that, pushing on that. There will be some tax provisions moving forward. And so I'm really hopeful that we can get that into the plan. The other thing, with my hat on around healthcare and mental health and substance abuse, I'm continuing to push forward on support for school-based health centers. I know our 140 school-based health centers in Michigan have been really important in the pandemic, and certainly needed as children are coming back to school. So I've introduced a bipartisan bill called Hallways to Healthcare to help provide comprehensive healthcare to students that would be not only what we think of as physical health care, but funding for expanding mental health and substance abuse services, and for construction of new clinics and improving current clinics. And we also include a demonstration program to increase telehealth at school-based health clinics. So that's an important piece that we need to get done as well. And then finally, with my agriculture and nutrition committee hat on, let me first say that I really do applaud all of your work and the flexibility during COVID-19 to ensure that students have food to eat. This has been really challenging, as you know, continues to be. So we're going to be, we're working to reauthorize a bill that's done every 5 years, although unfortunately it's not been reauthorized in 10 years. So I'm working very hard to get the child nutrition policies reauthorized this year. We hope to be able to do that and make sure that we're supporting your efforts to give children healthy food at breakfast and lunch and after school. Part of what I'm working to do as well is to reduce the administrative burden on schools and to make sure more children have access to free meals once the pandemic flexibilities end. And we really need to work together on smart solutions to reach children when school's out and when they're in childcare for longer hours. So we're working on that as well. And I know that in addition to a health crisis, we've had a hunger crisis during the pandemic, and working very hard to make sure that we're addressing the needs of children and of families. So I'm going to stop. There's a lot of different hats that I'm wearing right now, and we've got a lot of work to do together. I am hopeful as I'm seeing the signs of us moving through what has been this horrible pandemic. But there's a lot that we've got to do, as you know, to be able to not only get back to where we were, but hopefully be better than we were. And so when the president says build back better, I mean, I really think that's so important for us when we look at schools and what we need to do. So I will stop, Jen. Happy to take any questions.
Well, the first one has to do with the Rebuild American Schools Act and the infrastructure appropriations. Those conversations we know are going on in the Senate right now. But the question is specific to what can we do? What can board members do to help ensure that any of this robust infrastructure appropriations, that they include school infrastructure within them?
I think that it's doing what you're doing right now and doing more of it, and really speaking up loudly to House members. Senator Peters and I are going to be there for sure. But right now we're having a very difficult set of conversations around what is infrastructure, and Republican colleagues want to define it really, really narrowly. Even though we couldn't even narrowly get it done in the last 4 years, even roads, bridges, water, sewer systems, now, we're having conversations around that. But the broader question of infrastructure, of facilities, it's so many important needs that we have that, we need to keep those needs, the needs of schools, really on the agenda, both in terms of what we're doing in terms of investing in infrastructure and on the tax side, as I mentioned. I mean, that, really giving you the opportunity to be able to move forward on your needs as well in the community. So it's a constant discussion that's going on. I think we're in a situation where the best scenario, if we can get it, will be a smaller, more narrow infrastructure bill around roads and bridges and hopefully water and sewer systems. I mean, we reported a bill out of committee that would authorize replacing all the lead pipes in in the country over a number of years, which really needs to be done. And there was support for that. There was bipartisan support to do that. There wasn't bipartisan support to fund it. So if we could get something smaller around traditional infrastructure, and then we're going to have to, through the budget process, reconciliation process that can be done with 50 votes. Hopefully, our only opportunity will be through that to actually get the broader set of needs met and to actually fund it. We need to make, there's a lot of opportunities to fund what needs to get done.
You mentioned IDEA and the president's proposal to drastically increase funding to that. Just as an example out of Michigan, when we look at the total amount of funding from state, local, and federal revenues, we're running about $750 million across the state short on paying for our special education costs. And if we go back to IDEA and the idea that the federal government should fund at 40% of costs, that would more than make up for the gap and include even a little extra. Do you think there's any chance that we'll see the bill to fully fund IDEA get a hearing or some movement this session?
I'm not on the committee, on the help committee, and so I'm not sure what they're planning. Possibly we'll get a hearing. I know that again, the president, the vice president, the first lady, who is really the education champion in chief. It's just amazing in supporting education on every level. I know they would love to do that. We would love to do that. As a practical matter, I think if we can get a robust step forward in the budget, and then keep moving forward in the next few years, it's very possible. It's all a question of where the votes are. I mean, right now, we're in a situation where in a 50-50 Senate, and the dynamics that we're dealing with, we don't have the votes. School board members, teachers, parents can help create that. Parents of children with disabilities, speaking loudly. There is a moment to try and make that happen. It won't happen without a push. It'll take a big push, and maybe adding a few folks on our side of the aisle after the next election. And then could that happen? Yes, that could absolutely happen. It's, right now, I think, we've got to push for as big an increase as we can get, but it should have happened. It should have happened a long time ago. So, and all of you need to keep saying that, and don't, it really needs to take a level of push. You've got the right dynamic with a White House that agrees right now. And so, I would just encourage you to really push, really push.
And speaking of the budget, can you speak a little to the budget process? Does the budget committee have appropriation numbers it's working from, or how is that process going to work this year?
Well, it's different than the state legislature, where you have an appropriations committee, as you know, and sort of everything goes through there. We have, we have the budget committee, which sort of does the big top line numbers in each category, and then appropriations committees that normally go and do all the specific line items of it. And at this point, there's sort of several things happening at once. So the sausage making at the moment is, complicated. But we're going to be moving forward with a budget resolution for the next year that has the highest numbers that we possibly can for education and for other critical needs. And then there's a separate appropriations process that's moving at the same time, trying to get to those same numbers. So it's not one place. That's what's always hard. It's actually three places, because the budget committee does this big overview. Top 9, this is the total number we'll spend on defense. This is the total number we'll spend in health and human services, or total number in education. Then you've got the committees that authorize specific programs. And then you've got appropriations. So in the end, in the normal year, the most important thing is to focus on the appropriations committee, because when the rubber meets the road, they're the ones that put the money in each line item. And so that's important. But in a year like now, when we have a president wanting to step out and do things in a robust way, to be able to do larger investments like the American Jobs Plan and American Family Plan, what we do through the budget process also becomes very, very important. So they are both important at this point in time. I think rather than worrying about how our end's going to work, I would just encourage you to be advocating as strongly as possible and let us figure out where it all works. But, you need to be, as you do, advocating for children, advocating for teachers, advocating for all of your schools, and just strongly advocate and say, I don't care, you guys go figure it out. This is just what we need for kids.
I know we're running out of time. I want to thank you so much for being here with us. And if there's ever anything that any of my members can do or MASB can do to help you and your staff in the work that you're doing, count us among those resources that will lend an aid. And do you have any final comments for our members?
Well, I just think, this is a time, as much as we have been through, we just have to be hopeful and optimistic, and take this as an opportunity, really truly, to build back better. I mean, that's really, and our kids are going to have a lot of needs, as we know, and gone through some scary times and emotional needs, and as well as teachers and other staff and so on. And we've just got to decide, we're going to continue. We've gone through the worst of it, hopefully, knock on wood, we've gone through the worst of this in terms of the pandemic, and we just got to push through it and come out stronger on the other side, and not accept half measures. I mean, you should be just fighting for what you need. That's what I would say. Just fight for what you need, and fight for what kids need, and we'll have a better opportunity to actually get it done if we're seeing that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it, and keep up the good fight for us.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.